Great.
Yeah, you
Okay.
were asking about those. There's two there's stereo portable 8-track players. The one on the bottom, my wife got for me several years ago. And it's great gift. This is one of
Mm.
my favorite 8-track portable players I've,
They
ever.
look pretty new, right?
No, yeah, right. I mean, they have a look
The
like they could have
blue
been designed
color
like
and all. Yeah.
in the early 2000s. It seems like a kind of like an Apple product.
Yeah.
Redesign. But no, yeah. In fact, I was thinking if they ever wanted to start making 8-track players again, this would be a great, uh, design to duplicate or whatever because it looks somewhat timeless compared to other things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, hey man, how are you?
Good. Sorry about all the delays. I'm in my office. That's the whiteboard.
Nice, nice.
So
Yeah,
don't steal
looks
any of
like you
my
got a bunch of
ideas.
looks like you got a bunch of smart stuff behind you there.
Yeah, I
I just
just
have
come
some
in and I
stupid
just
8-track. I've got stupid 8-track players, and you've got
right. Yeah.
smart stuff.
No, I just, I went in the other guy next door. I went in his office and I took a picture of his whiteboard and then I duplicated everything on mine. I have no idea what it
Yeah,
means.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Man, thank you. Thanks. Hey, welcome to Tape Talk, by the way.
Hey, it's good to be here.
And this is Steve
So,
Rosenbaum. I love Steve.
yeah, can I do one of those little like they're like 10-second, like a voice thing that you can use in the future? And like it'll be like, "Hi, I'm Steve Rosenbaum and you're watching Tape Talk." And you can put that
Do
like at
it.
the
Oh,
beginning of
please. Yeah. I'll
another
just,
show.
yeah,
You
reserve
can
the
just
right
clip
to
that out of this. Yeah,
yeah,
just put it in
do it.
there.
Okay, so three, two, one.
Hi, this is Steve Rosenbaum, and you're watching Tape Talk. How's that?
That sounds so good. And
Yeah.
man, if I had more initiative, I might, or I should use that someday, but it's
Yeah,
there. It exists now.
that's going to be the name of my book. If I had more initiative, that's going to be the name of it's going to be
Yeah.
my autobiography.
Yeah, I
If
tend to
only.
only have my initiative, kind of ends after the initial, creative thought process, and then, the execution tends to suffer. But that's a lot of people's story.
It's the important thing is that you had the idea. Like seeing it through to something concrete is really just for
For
the
somebody
monkey
else to
work.
do. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna do one of these here.
Okay, you're good.
Now I know
Yeah,
you're.
I just got the office coffee and it's only not 11 a.m. yet, so
Hey
that's
man,
my
that's
cutoff.
that's 2 hours after when I'd be willing to drink a beer.
Well, it depends. I used to go on those campouts with my kids, like the YMCA guides and princess. They used to be called Indian guides and they don't call it, they just call it guides and princesses now, which is basically dads take their kids to a campground, ditch the kids and go sit around the campfire and drink as much beer as possible. And then they start again, at breakfast the next morning.
Wow,
So
that sounds so good. Oh my God, that
yeah,
sounds.
so you might want to sign up as long as you've got kids. That gives you a free pass to drink beer in the woods as much
Yeah,
as you want on
yeah,
the
that
weekend.
I like it. I would have to say I am surprised that you didn't, you know, I mean, every time I mention drinking beer, whenever we're just like, chatting on, Facebook Messenger or whatever, there's always some kind of like a beer quiz or judgment or something. I'm
Oh
surprised
no,
you didn't
yeah,
even say anything about it. You're like, oh, what are you drinking there? Or
yeah,
you looked at it and you,
yeah.
you
Well,
thought, I fucking hate that, and I'm not gonna embarrass him by,
you know, if you would have held up anything but, or if you would have held up any of the sort of yellow swill, I might have said something. But I always drink those high, imperials and doubles and all that. So I figure I've never actually had that. I've seen those cans around the Voodoo, whatever that is, but
oh, you,
I
you
always
haven't
get
had
the. What's that?
you haven't had Voodoo Ranger?
I don't think so. I might have once or twice, but this sort of here in San Diego, there's, definitely Stone is a lot around and they have a
Oh
gazillion
yeah.
varieties. And then
Um,
the other one I get a lot is I guess that's the main one, this weird one that Stone makes, which is this sort of East Coast meets West Coast double IPA called Fear Movie Lions, if you've ever
wow,
seen that
that's
one,
crazy. I
which is
mean, it sounds
actually
like it.
comes from,
It
not to
better
go too
fucking be
far, we
good with
haven't
a name
talked.
like that, right?
Yeah, we haven't talked tape at all, but there's a really cool site, and I forget the name of it. I'll figure it out. But basically, it divides the entire world, the entire Earth, into grids, and each grid has a unique name. So the spot where in the warehouse, the spot in the factory where this beer is brewed, the map name of that little grid is Fear Movie Lions. And I did that for my
Okay.
house once, and I got this great name for the bedroom, which was just really sort of evocative, but now I can't remember. I wish I could remember the name of the site. I would look it up right now.
Huh.
You could have
Well, that's
hours of
good.
fun with it.
At least it
Yeah.
sounds like kind of like a method Eno might use for naming a beer or something.
Right. Yeah. So
Like some like
exactly.
kind of
Eno
like
would
a
be all over this. It's totally an Eno idea.
yeah. But that takes any kind of judgment off of any heat of judgment off of them, for like, oh, dude, that's a stupid name. It's like, well, hey,
Right.
it's a technical name, so you can't really come after us too much. We were just trying to.
That's right. Yeah, we didn't, it wasn't our creativity that came up with this. It's so the name of the site, just so you know, is called what3words.com. And
Okay.
you can put in an address and you will get it. So that's for your movie lines, you stick it in there, you'll find exactly where they brew that beer.
Yeah, and by the way, don't worry about it. We haven't not doing any tape talk yet. I mean, I've done a few of these so far, and there's been a lot less tape talk than this at
Okay.
the beginning. Well,
All right,
um,
let me just say wait a minute. Okay. Okay, here we go. Just really quick. Okay, so over the bedroom, in my bedroom, in my house, the grid names present nocturnal diversions is one little part of my bedroom because these grids are like maybe 4 feet by 4 feet or something. So there's a few. Another one is displays sugared eyelashes. These are
man,
just poetry. Um, and then more towards my side of the bed, that's my wife's side. My side is response shop dumping, and then foreign frenzy blossoms. That's there, and then
I mean,
my closet is life saving rich aloes. Anyway, on and on and on. One more, which is the office where I do a lot of recording,
that's
is
crazy. I mean, it's kind of
this
crazy that I mean, like, that's interesting because those, her three words, tend to be more feminine and kind of
right,
fit. And then your side, it's great. It's like, because I mean, you're married to an Indian woman, and
right.
the what was it? Was the second one? It was exotic frenzy
Foreign
blossoms,
frenzy
warm
blossoms, I think.
frenzy blossoms. It's like somehow it's like how did they get that? It's
Yeah,
great.
and then where my desk is in the office where I do some recording, I think this is about where it is satisfaction bagpipes initial. Oh, here's another one. Oh, this is perfect. This is actually the spot where my desk is, where I do my creating, and it's just almost I couldn't have done it better. Imitate, cram, managed.
Wow,
Isn't that just well, there you go.
man.
That should be, they should just put that on all my reviews.
I mean, it just goes to show how much math has to play in the universe, I
That's
guess.
right.
I don't know.
So anyway,
Um, all
what
right,
three
so
words that?
what was I gonna say? Oh, one other thing, I was thinking about changing my shirt because
Oh,
um,
go ahead. You want to
well, no,
pause and
I'm gonna see how this is
let's
gonna
do it now? All right, here we
well,
go. You got to change the rating on your
yeah, I
shirt.
might have to, yeah. Um,
I mean, like maybe not all the way to a hard R, but like maybe just like
like a
like a
P,
serious
like a
PG.
well, I don't know.
That looks
Um,
like the same shirt.
it does. It's a different shirt though, and you know what? I feel like this kind of washes me out a little bit more. But
Okay.
I've worn that other one. It's just like this kind of like intentionally faded Mickey Mouse shirt work, and it's yeah, it seems like I've worn it a lot in some of the videos stuff I've done. So I whatever, yeah, whatever. I'll just deal with this. This is fine. Anyway,
That's all right.
thank you.
It
Let's
looks
go. Let's go to tape talk. All right,
all
now,
right.
okay. So I guess I'll attempt to say some things about you. Yeah.
Sure. Did you write them
So
down?
Steve, no, I'm gonna wing it. All right.
Just riffing.
Steve, who I met in a multi-track like cassette portastudio group. He posts this stuff, um material that he had recorded, just like 30 to 45 years ago.
Yeah.
um he's kind of you've kind of rediscovered. Okay, I'm gonna stop referring to you in the third person. It's too weird. I'm just gonna start saying you. All right, so
He.
I met you there in this group because you had started posting this stuff. You had been out of the music game for a while. You're kind of coming back, and you're like kind of rediscovering your old material. And what you'd done is you'd recorded. In case you didn't know, I'm letting you know what you did, Steve.
Yeah, what I did.
Yeah, you recorded all this stuff on the 4 track, which is like kind of like the prosumer home recording method. Kind of came up by Tascam in the late 70s. Um, and then other companies kind of got in on the game, and it became a thing where people were just, able to record in their bedrooms, just demos. But then, some people took it to the extreme and made, there are some professional releases that were done on a 4 track. But you were kind of rediscovering some of your old recordings, and there was a lot of them. I mean, you really went to town on working on that stuff through that period, like 79 through 89. Generally, I think it was.
Yep. Yep.
So you just kept posting these audio clips in this group, and it's just the sweetest power pop, jangle pop, college 80s college rock, kind of just any kind of like late 60s pop. There's just a mixture of all this stuff kind of being each song. One song may lean more than to one than the other. But it really caught my eye or my ear because they were just like there was like so many hooks going on, melodically or rhythmically, or just something. It's like, why wasn't this guy ever discovered, or why didn't somebody do something, exploit this guy? Because it seems like it totally could have happened. So anyway, we kind of struck up conversation, and we had a lot of common interests in general, outside of those genres I mentioned, and then just in life
Right.
and stuff. And so we enjoyed talking for a while about stuff, and then I ended up basically my master plan, even before we talked, was to try to release your some of this material in kind of like a compilation of, because they were kind of like, you never did an album, right?
Right.
Yeah, it was
Right.
kind
No,
of
they
all
were just all over the
singles,
place.
and just like it was
Yeah.
just demos basically.
Yeah, they were
So
never released at all. Not only not an album, but not. Hey, there it is.
so
There's my
I
eighth grade
my
picture.
Dead Media Tapes label released it on 8 track and reel to reel. So we've got the
That's
this is a
it.
golden
Yes.
reel. This is a golden reel, actually. The
Hmm.
golden one. I didn't send you that one. I'm because, well, I'll send you a golden reel.
All right. Well,
Yeah. So anyway, I'll just show the
I can
inside of
find
the
it.
box, the real box. So
Yep.
we got this with, we
Yep.
got some nice
Yeah.
pictures of some of your equipment, some
Yes,
70s,
the few
like
pictures
80s.
I took.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the back is, just kind of more pictures. I guess you had
Hmm.
some friends playing on some of the songs.
Yes, in fact, one of the guys that's in one of the pictures is actually on one of the songs. The guy, there's that three of
Oh yeah.
us. That was one that was in high school. So that's a high school picture
Okay.
with overalls, no shirt and overalls.
So, I just wanted to kind of say that, and then, just to kind of like, like why you're here. I mean, so you had your deal was kind of like cassette tape.
Right.
It seems like. So, but let me ask you, what was your first, do you have any kind of first or like early memory of any kind of tape, whether it be cassette or whatever?
Right. No, I was very fascinated by a tape recorder. So when I was probably in, elementary school, second grade or something, my dad, for some reason, maybe someone at work or something, like lent him one. I don't know why they would have, but it's the classic, like the Panasonic portable cassette player. It
The
was
rectangle,
the,
the
what's that?
businessman
The
used to,
rectangle. Yeah.
the
So it had like a big
dictation.
silver,
Yeah.
a big silver metal like thing with holes in it,
Hmm.
and behind that was the speaker. And then there was the first one he brought home had an external mic you would plug in, but then all those Panasonics had those internal mics.
Right.
If you remember, there was like a little tiny little rectangle in like sort of next to the mechanism that had it said condenser mic on it even. And I
Yeah.
remember thinking
It's
the
like an
condenser
automatic
meant
level
some,
control, like an automatic level
yeah,
control.
ALC, right. And I think, yeah, I think I remember thinking condenser meant it was like inside the thing, but now I know that condenser mic is something else. But
Yeah.
which is sort of interesting. They had an active mic in there. They're sort of, I guess that was because it was so small and I don't know, you couldn't hold it up near your face. But anyway, so I got a real kick out of it. Me and my friends would, do, I don't know, act stuff out and tell jokes. And I still have some of these really old cassettes of like when I was in elementary school. And there's one, like my friend across the street, a real character, like saying like these obscene versions of the hit songs on the radio into it. So I've got like his ridiculous version of "You're 16," which was an old song by Johnny Burnett, I think, but Ringo Starr had a hit with it
Yeah.
in like
Yeah.
72 or 73. And he had made up his own, wait, I think I lost it for a second. Oh, he had made up his own obscene version of it. And, when we were like 12,
Yeah.
and putting it on tape really was like daring. So, back then that was a big deal. But anyway, so I was into that. And then I remember at some point, as a,
But let me hang on. Let me just say real quick, if I may. That's
yeah,
that's. I mean, it makes sense, but it's just that's so many people's story. I mean, that was my first experience with tape was the rectangle thing of my dad,
right,
and my sister and I acting out skits and trying to tell
right.
jokes and stuff like that. I mean, what a thing. It's like that when you think about it, that box is so that rectangular recorder, mono recorder, which it didn't even
Yeah,
have like electromagnetic erase head. It was just like a literal magnet that was just kind of like
yeah,
on a spring that would just like lift up and just like kind of zap the take
right.
in a real crude and dirty way, erase
Yeah,
tape before it records the new information. But I mean, those things were just such a just a thing for kids, back then,
yeah.
within a certain maybe a 20-year range.
Yeah, I would bring the thing in and like I'd record the audio off a TV show that I liked. I don't know why.
Mhm.
Like I would, oh, the Monkees is on, and I would like record the audio, or I
Mhm.
would act like I was a radio DJ. Like I would introduce the song and then put the tape thing
Yeah.
near the stereo, and then play the song. And then but the interesting thing was I started to figure out, hey, there's these extra little jacks. And somehow I would get, I don't remember where, a Radio Shack or something, to get the cable. And then I figured out there's like an auxiliary input in our home console stereo. So I like came out of some auxiliary output, I think that was on that or something, and plugged it. And next thing I knew, like I was playing the cassette through the big stereo
Oh yeah,
speakers.
yeah, yeah.
And so I started learning, hey, things can connect together. And then I think at some point I needed a cassette player for something, and then my sister did, or somehow there were two of these things in the house. And I actually was playing guitar and stuff. And I remember I tried as an experiment because it occurred to me, not because I read it on the internet, which there was none in like 1970 or 71. I had that album Four-Way Street by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and the very end I think is the song called "Find the Cost of Freedom," and they do like a beautiful harmony thing. But I knew the chords and I sang it, and then I into the cassette, and then I took that cassette and played it, and I sang to it and added another vocal and put it on the first. So that was my first bouncing. Would have been
Yeah,
like early 70s, and so
that's
I did that.
incredible. Hey, I just want to say, first of all, I'm sorry, I'm just going to interject here periodically, but okay, so what you're talking, I mean, what you first were talking about with like, going out of the auxiliary jack into your parents' console, and kind of what you're describing is, like, oh, this occurred to me, and this is routing, so. And one thing that I've noticed is that you're talking to people who are like a little bit older into whatever recording or whatever, is that there are certain people who are just seen to be inclined, like routing inclined, You know, like
Right.
I was
Yeah.
not routing inclined. I mean, I wanted these things to happen, but it's more kind of an emotional thing than technical. And so I never, I wish I'd discovered, hearing what you were doing, which is, and so then you're going into like bouncing, um, which actually is more, yeah, it's, so you're doing kind of like the origins of multitracking in a
Right.
sense. You've got a source on one tape and then you're playing it into another one while you're singing along with it. Is
Right.
that correct?
Yeah. Right. That's
And
right.
then and so it's like now you've got two parts and then you repeat the process. So now you have two parts on this one tape, sing along with that. So now you've got three, right?
Right. Yeah. So, and I didn't go farther than that, I remember. That time. The big thing we did with bouncing was so dumb. When I was maybe 15 or 16, this friend of mine who was a big practical jokester, we were going to do some prank phone calls and we wanted it to come from a restaurant. So we needed like the background noise of a restaurant. So we took two cassettes, again, just in the air, not direct routed or anything, and like talked and stuff and clanged glasses around. And we built up probably like six or seven. And at
Wow.
the end, it sounded like a crowded restaurant
That's
in the background.
incredible.
So we
That's
could like call
incredible.
people from the Chinese restaurant and do whatever our joke was.
Dude, do you have a recording of that still? I mean, do you have
No,
that?
I don't have that one. Got to ask Marty
This is
Hedler
so
about that.
interesting. That is so
Yeah.
interesting. I mean, just like it's like you're getting into like movie sound effects, or something.
Right. Yeah.
This is
Yeah. And
great.
we had, and so we thought, well, no one, it's really for a restaurant because you can hear the sound of a restaurant behind us. And I can't remember what the joke was, but I just remember that it was, we spent most of the time getting ready to make the phone call by making this background of a restaurant sounds. And then that was how I think it lodged in my brain that this can be done. But then I never tried it again till probably, 5 years later when I was literally trying to make recordings doing that.
Yeah.
A little bit
Man,
more.
okay, so I
Yeah.
gotta stop just for a second. I mean, because I usually would do this at the beginning, but do you mind telling me how old you are?
I don't mind. I have to think about it. 63. So I was born in
63.
60. Yeah.
Born in when?
1960.
1960. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you got a birthday coming up?
It's a ways out there.
Okay. Well, anyway,
It's late
and
December.
then you're from, I mean, I know where you're from, but
Yeah.
would you mind
That's
saying,
all right. The audience, the large audience that's listening to this doesn't.
man?
Toledo, Ohio, which is an interesting place. And I know you've been there. And so,
Yeah, no, it's so yeah, I won't go into I'm not believe me, I'm not gonna do another Toledo diversion. But no,
okay.
but I wanted to say that, I've always admired people from Ohio. I mean, it's just like when I used to do touring 20 years ago, I would end up spending a lot of time in Ohio and just hanging out. Like I had a gig and then I would just like want to hang out. I have a bunch, at the time I had a bunch of friends from there, and there's just something about people from Ohio. They're just crafty and funny and
Yeah.
witty and stuff. And I mean, to me, you fall right in there. And this is, this
Thank you.
stuff that you're talking about of, just being a kid, discovering, especially at a time when there's no like online information or there's no magazines giving you tips and stuff. It's just like you're just looking at holes and little silk screen names above them and kind of putting
Right.
two and two together. It's like, auxiliary, or auxiliary
Yeah.
out and I mean, whatever it is.
Right. Yep. And I'm sure 90% together, nothing happened, but then I go, I remember one time just I had a radio with an antenna, like a portable radio with a retractable antenna
Yeah.
extension. And we had a TV with a little 1/8 inch like earphone jack
Hmm.
in it. So, it wasn't like today. It was like the old ones that you would put in and somehow I thought, well, I don't know why I thought this, that somehow like I could take the radio and I could stick the antenna into the little 1/8 inch jack on the TV where sound could come out and it would go into the antenna and come out of the radio. But that was to do. I totally like ruined the audio. Like I broke that connector such that the TV thought there was always earphones plugged into it,
Oh, okay.
or the
Yeah.
speakers stopped working on the TV. I never
Oh
told my parents
man.
why. I'm just like, hey, I don't know. It's just not working. I don't
Which
know.
is something actually, I mean, this is, I shouldn't, probably shouldn't even mention this, but that on, I use the main, well, okay, so I use a cassette portastudio currently, I mean, I know you've
Right.
long abandoned that, but, the one I use is an eight channel or 8 track,
Yeah.
on 8 strips on the skinny cassette, which is like a miracle
Right.
that even can happen. But it actually sounds good. They over-engineered the head, so it works. But um, the particular one I use is a Tascam 488 Mark II, and one of its common problems is that you'll lose audio in like on tracks 1 and 2. And what it turns out to be is similar to what you just said, that in the front, it has on the front two of just those two, channels 1 and 2, it's got insert cable jacks.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And, you know, so what happens is something gets stuck in there,
Right.
and or I mean,
It
or it,
thinks
it
there's an input.
electronically gets stuck. And
Right.
so the solution, people will just like throw these away or sell them for parts. But what you need to do is
Right.
just take a 1/4 inch jack and just like, fuck it a bit, and
Yeah. Right.
it'll be good. It's like the channel comes back to life. It's just like it kind of rejuvenates that. So I don't know if you tried
Right.
that. So if you got a
I
time machine,
I
you can
can't
go back to
remember.
that date,
Yeah, it was something that I did when I was probably 7 or 8, but I just remember thinking it should work, but it didn't work. That was just one of those try it and see, and then you learn your lesson.
Okay, so so now you have these two square or rectangular kind
Right,
of businessman dictation recorders, and now
right.
we're talking 5 years later. You've graduated to component decks.
Yeah, I've got, well, like everybody back then, you could buy a pretty nice stereo cassette player for a couple $100, I guess. I don't remember the prices back then. I mean, yeah, they were
Which is
affordable,
like $800 today, but yeah.
yeah. So yeah, that's right. And maybe it wasn't even that. I can't remember. I had like an Iowa one,
Yeah,
AIWA, that brand.
those are
And
great.
and um and I just used it to, I'd record other people's albums and play them back. And then I also had like live recordings of bands I was in. So, we would stick I'd bring the cassette down and plug a mic into it. And we actually got some okay recordings like in the basement. But then right around that time, it popped in my head again to do the bouncing, but not through a direct means, meaning a cable or a,
Right. Like
sound
a
cable.
more professional sense.
Right. And my first go at it, the big thing for me. A lot of people that I talk to about bouncing cassettes either say, yeah, of course that's the way I did it, or they say, oh, I never thought of that, which is that. So you have two cassettes, 1 and 2. I mean, I'm hoping you know how the bouncing works. So I'd record my first thing on cassette, and I would say, okay, this is the recording deck. And then I had another deck that was the play deck that would, have the information that I had recorded on the first deck. I would take the cassette out of the first deck, put it in the second deck, and then play that while I recorded the new thing. And I
Mm-hmm.
was always recording on the first deck and playing on the second. That would lead you down to like a bad result. And the reason is because the cassette player you record on should be the same one you play on, because the heads are never in the exact same spot
Mm.
compared to tape. So I realized, okay, cassette one I record on, then I make the second tape deck the recording one, and now I make the first one the playing one. So the cassettes never leave their homes,
Yeah,
the actual cassette.
yeah.
And that made a big difference with respect to
So
hiss.
looking on your album, um, God damn it, Steve. I just got the 10-minute warning. Fuck. We're having
Oh,
time.
we're just
No, it's
getting
okay. Don't worry
going.
about it. Yeah. So looking on your album, because I'll put a link to the Bandcamp page that has, in case people want to hear some of the stuff that we're
Right.
talking about. Which songs, I know Floaty Boats, right? That was done that way.
Floaty boats, come on over. Uh, what was it? Come on over. Uh, Got to Tell You,
Yeah.
Me Alone. I think
Which
there's
those
like four
sound
or five.
great. I mean, they sound really good. I mean, it's like, yeah, there's a home recorded quality to it, but it's very crisp. I mean,
Yeah, and
you
they,
had a focus. You were like trying to make this sound good.
I really wanted them to sound good, but I was not like I was not very into the technology. I just wanted the technology not to mess it up too much. I wasn't like, oh, I'm gonna, enhance this and that, to the point where, like, as you know, I was saying, oh, I really want drums, but I didn't have a drum machine, they sounded terrible anyway back then. Drum machines, they were just a
Oh,
joke.
yes, please. Are you about to tell what you did? Yeah.
Yeah, so I said, well, I want drums, and I had learned at some point that bass guitar and kick go something I learned along the way as a musician. And I knew that really the essence of the bass drum is this, this
I love that sound. Can you make that again?
right. So I just said that's all I need. So I had this big terry cloth robe, like a really thick one, and I took it and I put it in a plastic bucket. And then I took my mic, which was an SM58, and I put that like in the middle of the robe, right? So it's like in this sort of terry cloth
Nest.
pillow.
We'll call it in like a
And then,
nest.
yeah, and then I would just hit the top of the bucket, and it made that, just this kind of percussive low end. And then I just made sure that that always was real tight with the bass. And then it's almost like one instrument, the bass guitar and that buckety thing, which was like the airs. And then the snare, I said, well, first of all, snare, I always knew has to be it has to be super prominent in a mix, in a rock mix. If you listen to everything I do, the snare is always pretty forward, because it kind of drives it. And then I said, well, what's the sound of a snare? The sound of a snare drum is actually those little metal things that go are rattling when you hit the snare drum. So I said, well, I need the sound of a percussive hit and a rattle. So I had my favorite one was on Me Alone. I had this yellow opaque plastic Tupperware thing. It was like 8 inches big or something, and maybe 4 inches tall. And then I put like some keys or nails or something on top of it. And I had a drumstick, like a broken drumstick that I had picked up along the way from some drummer, and I was hitting it with that. So I put the mic close to it, and you just hear that rattle, 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 and some percussive hits. And between that, and then I ran it through my roommate had a solid state amp with a spring reverb in it, and through that to get like some ambience. And that was it. It was just like, okay, that's my drum set. Like, and you don't really need cymbals. I've done whole songs, even Girl from 17, which is also on that album, was done in a pro studio. If you listen to it, it's just a kick drum and a snare drum. And I played that myself, actually in two go-arounds. I did the kick drum, then I
Nice.
did the snare drum. No,
You're
it was a six.
you're a solutions guy.
Yes. It's like, okay, what's the essence of what I need here? I'll just get it and I'll do it. And that came out great. It's like
It
it's
did,
almost
man. It came
it,
out
it
so great. I mean, it's like it's just so charming. I hope anybody who's watching this, like I said, I'll put the link in there. Me Alone is the
yeah.
first track on this on the album. I mean, and it's great. I mean, and that initial chord that you hit, you know, um,
Yes.
it's. I mean, I know that's a
Weirdly
Beatles thing,
influenced
right?
by, yeah, it was, I don't know. I had all these jumbled ideas in my head of what to do. And I remember I would do these, it was like a ritual almost. So a Friday afternoon, I was at college. I would come home from my class. I had this room in a house, and I would go in there, and I had a girlfriend at the time who worked every Friday. She worked at a restaurant. So she would always come over Friday at like 10 or 9. Like she worked dinner and then she would be off work and then she'd come over. So I would like get started like 3 in the afternoon after my class. And then I knew I had like a stop at like 9. So these are all like one afternoon, each one of these things,
Wow.
and however many tracks they are. And then I learned other things like go in the closet to do the vocal, which was a nice dead room, and then I ran them everything through that reverb, through that amplifier that my roommate had. His little combo amp had that
Yeah.
spring reverb, and I think it had like a direct out on it or something, so I could run through that, pick up that spring reverb, and then go into the cassette, and
Um,
I did 5 or 6
yeah.
of those.
So that man, it's great, and I mean, you have a lot of interesting tricks that you employed during that time. So just before we run
Yeah,
out of time, though, I want to get into so you were doing this two like component, like large size like cassette decks that would go in someone's stereo system. Then you
right.
graduated to what?
Yeah, portastudio. So I was a senior in college, or my last year of college. I saw the ads in, like, Musician Magazine or whatever I was reading, the full page ad for the portastudio. And I was just like, I want that,
And that this
I
is this
really
the
fuck
first
with it.
model? Is it the 144?
The 144, yeah, that's what I saw. But I don't know. I really guess I didn't have the money, because I kept saying, I don't remember how much they were. I mean, they were expensive for like college, like $1,500 or $2,000 when they
Yeah.
first came out, like those dollars back then.
Yeah.
Not, so take the inflation. So I moved. I never bought one. And then there was one thing they came out with. You may know about this. They came out with a real kind of a component version of a 4-track in there
Mhm.
that I really thought was cool too. So I moved. I got done with school. I did not buy a new one. I was still doing a little bit of two cassette deck, and then I moved to California because I got a job in LA. And when I got there and I had my real paycheck, I looked for a used one, and the guy had one I remember I paid $1,000 for used, and by then they were up to the 244. So the thing I bought was a 244,
Oh, okay.
and then I started recording with that. So
That's nice.
I was still doing some of the same stuff. Like, I didn't have a drum machine. The song on there called Charity
Yeah.
on there, that's like the first thing I recorded on my Portastudio. That was done. I had these wooden speaker cabinets, and I had some drumsticks still. And the whole drums on that is just tick, 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 and it's me playing
It's kind of
the
like a
drums
Stray Cats
on those
type
speakers.
vibe.
Yeah, yeah. And then there's a lot of echo, I think, on that.
Yeah.
Maybe I can't remember, to kind of give it a little bit more. So it was that one thing I did. And then I think I got a hold of some drum machines, and you start to hear them creep in a little more. I borrowed them. The one song, 72 Days, was done with a Mattel Synsonics drum set, which was sort of famous,
Oh, that's great.
by,
I love
by in a
that.
toy store. And then my big
That's great. Yeah,
my
I
big
love that.
drum machine that I used on most of the stuff is the TR-505, which I got pretty good at that.
Yeah.
I
Well,
even used to.
we're down at the minute mark. I just wanted to
All
say
right.
to wrap it up. I mean, I think we pretty much, I think we covered like, your tape aspect. And I
Yep.
know you did some stuff on a Tascam 38 8-track reel
Yes.
and
Right.
some other stuff, but it was mainly that period where you were doing the balancing and stuff that I was
Yeah.
mainly excited about covering here. Um, the only thing I'll say is that your daughter has gone on to do some music, and I think it's funny that
Right.
she basically borrowed the gear that you did, and I mean,
Right.
it sounds like. I love you, Steve, but her stuff sounds like recorded way better. It's like, what the,
Oh yeah.
well, how
It's
did she do the
crazy.
same gear? Yeah.
I don't know. And well, she didn't use cassettes, but she used
Yeah.
the same mic, same
Yeah.
microphone.
Which is
That's the main
interesting.
thing.
I mean,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
sounds
That
incredible. I'll
mic,
put
I
a
don't know,
link
it's
to that.
magic.
I'll put a link to that in there. Anyway, thanks for coming on, Steve. We're out of time. I wish you had an extra 5 minutes. Maybe I shouldn't have yapped at the beginning, but hey, well, maybe we'll do another one. All right.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks,
Thanks, man.
Nathan.
Bye.
Bye.